Good afternoon. It's Kathleen Smith, Chief Outreach Officer here at ClearedJobs.Net. And we have another wonderful panel with us this afternoon in preparation for our virtual Clear Job Fair next Tuesday, August 3rd, focusing on positions in Texas. But we really wanted to get some frontline advice and recommendations from our recruiters on how job search is going now and their recommendations based on their years of experience. I'm first going to have each one of our panelists introduce themselves, the company that they are representing, and what kind of jobs that they're looking to fill at next week's event or that they're trying to fill right now. Jada, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, Kathleen. My name is Jada Fowler, and I work for DTSI, Diversified Technical Services. We are headquartered here in San Antonio, have been in existence for over 40 years, providing IT solutions to the DoD, and some of the positions that we hire for include software development, testers, project managers, infrastructure engineers, and application and system support.
Wonderful. Michael, welcome back. Tell us about you.
Thank you for having me back. I'm from Raytheon Intelligence and Space, and a lot of what we're going to be targeting for the career fair here is going to be on the operations side, specifically with clearances, looking at security, cybersecurity, and we'll also always going to have needs for cleared engineers.
Wonderful. And JoLana, tell us a little bit about you and what you're going to be looking for.
Yes, thank you. My name is JoLana Larsen, and I'm a recruiter with SAIC. At the fair, I'm going to be looking for folks. I have various Army and Navy positions available for supporting different contracts in Texas and the Austin area for systems engineers and architects, and then also various instructor positions for Navy roles in California and Virginia and the Washington State area.
Wonderful. So one of the reasons that we love getting together recruiters to sort of share what goes on behind the screen is to really explain to job seekers what it is like to be a recruiter and the things that you need to go through to fill the candidates or to fill the positions that you're looking for. So JoLana, can you sort of share with us, what is your typical day like?
Certainly. It's a balance of a lot of different things in managing my desk, where I'm usually spending the morning looking at new applicants for the jobs that I'm recruiting for, also coordinating the interviews and negotiating job offers, meeting with my hiring managers for feedback and discussions of the roles, and then also looking through the job boards and coordinating any sort of events coming up to engage with those that are passively looking too.
Wonderful. And Jada, do you want to share with us sort of what your day is like?
Yes, much the same as JoLana's. I think that as recruiters, there are a lot of expectations that are put on us, and there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes administrative wise. And so, of course, the priority of our job is to always fill positions. And every day that a position goes unfilled, it is noticed from all the way up to the top, all the way down to the team member who's filling in the gap for that person. And so there are a lot of expectation there. There are expectations to get those filled, but then to also be very performance driven, provide metrics, work with the hiring manager to schedule those interviews. And then Kathleen, I know we've had discussions about, how sometimes it can be challenging for candidates or people that we pre-screen to hear back from us because, we really are moving quickly and making every hour count as we, work to source and then also make things happen on the back end as well.
Awesome. And Michael, what's your regular day, and do you want to introduce your coworker?
That's my pup Maya. The lawn folks showed up at the right time, so I'm just trying to hold her back as best I can. But to reiterate what Jada and JoLana said, a lot of my job is based to fill positions and fill needs. So most of my day is either going after talent, sourcing on LinkedIn, or finding ways to introduce and make connections from my managers to candidates out there. The most unique thing in the last year, 6 months, has really been kind of being a coach to managers who are trying to navigate hiring in a situation where in the past year we haven't been able to meet with a lot of people to hire them. And then now with the world kind of opening back up a little bit, is coaching them to now we have a lot more competition as more people continue to hire. So navigating the talent landscape is a big deal and a big part of my day right now. So yes, there's resumes involved every day. There's reviewing candidates, talking to them, making those connections. But there's also the other side of it, which is really managing our hiring managers and coaching them to make sure that if they want somebody, to teach them how to get them.
So, Michael, I'm going to stick with you and sort of, segue into our next question is, what are some of the tools, we've had to pivot due to the pandemic and we went into virtual job search. What are some of the tools that job seekers should really improve upon during a virtual job search? Because as we've been hearing, I think virtual is going to be some component of recruiting and job search moving forward.
Absolutely. So I think even before the pandemic, video interviews and virtual job hunting was becoming more of a thing. This just greatly accelerated it. So being comfortable talking on camera, practicing on camera, because we have a lot of job offers going out off of just individual meetings like this, whether it be Zoom, StreamYard, Skype. Get used to those tools, get used to being in a setting, find yourself a comfortable place to do those types of interviews. It is okay to practice, whether you're calling your friends just to have a dialogue, but you want to know how you come off on camera. You want to know if you're giving any signs, if you're just looking around, things like that. But not much different than practicing a regular interview. As far as technology recruitment goes, I would also say, applying online has changed. You can apply in different ways to different platforms. Just make sure you're giving yourself all of the benefit of all of your experience and making sure you're being, what's the word I'm looking for? Not transparent, but fully communicating all of the details about your job application. You can't over communicate, whether it's virtually, on the phone, or on video. So make sure that if your resume doesn't have all the details about the roles you're applying for, make sure you find a way to get that information in there. Don't leave questions blanks on applications. I do feel like applications are starting to get a little easier to work with, but us recruiters understand that typing in all of your information several times over and over can be monotonous, but it is useful in the long run. So if you're really truly searching for a specific role, be as informative as possible and record all those details.
Wonderful. And JoLana, sort of, touch base with us a little bit as to anything else that you think a job seeker should work on during a virtual job search.
Yes. I'd say too, to echo what Michael said on, preparing and getting more comfortable using Zoom for interviews, having that eye contact with your camera, as awkward as that may feel, that for whom you're speaking to there. And a lot of the same that you would prepare for any sort of interview, and that of just looking up a few things online for some tips that you may be forgetting about in advance. I know we try to avoid the distractions and shut down things on our screen if we're doing that on a Zoom call. And then also putting in, I think, and then another recommendation to echo what Michael was saying too, for making sure that on any of the job boards you're using or any versions of your resume that you're using, that it does have your most up-to-date information. Sometimes you may think that it's up to date, but haven't looked at your profile somewhere in a little while. So kind of double checking that as you start to do the easy click to apply really goes a long way.
Wonderful. And JoLana, I know that your colleagues have really, Jada, your colleagues have done a really great job outlining everything, but is there anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I think that's absolutely it. All of the tools prior to the pandemic for applying were really kind of there, in job boards and resources and YouTube to really kind of prepare for an interview. But it is that last piece of practicing on video, having that workspace where you can totally focus and be fully engaged. And just like, JoLana said, when we're doing it virtual, you're missing that in-person connection. And so really staying engaged and making that eye contact on video is going to be really important.
Yes, I think this is what's interesting, is that a lot of us have gotten used to being face-to-face virtually. However, part of the problem is we are missing body language. We are missing, are people excited? So I think it's really great that all three of you have said, practice, get comfortable, don't be distracted, all of these things. So all three of you have talked to so many different candidates, and you've seen the process from beginning to end, as far as, sourcing a candidate all the way through to giving them the offer and having them start. So Jada, can you sort of point out for us, what are some of the areas that job seekers just sort of miss? They're great at a lot of aspects, but what is one area where we tend to sort of misstep?
Yeah, I think that speaking with a lot of folks who are IT, technical, cleared, they're all very good at what they do. They're very precise, but articulating that in an interview can be a challenge. And I think more so because the work that they do, they're very down in the weeds. And so, developers would rather be, coding than having conversation. So it really, if there was some time taken to expand upon the magnitude and the results of what they do, I think that could really make a lasting impression. And that can be as simple as talking about the users that are impacted, the business that's impacted. So, I talk to a lot of software developers, for example, and they will go into great depth about the code that they know, JavaScript, Java, SQL. But what impact is that having on the users? Because really, businesses and companies all have the same thing and the same goals when it comes to making a profit, saving on cost, becoming efficient. And so on top of talking about your technical skills, take that project and expand upon it by sharing this. We rolled out an application that affected the HR department that is made up of 5,000 users and, resulted in a cost savings of $2 million. So, really kind of coming out of the weeds and talking high level about your successes, I think would go a long way in both pre-screens and interviews.
Wonderful example. How about you, JoLana? What are some of the things that you see job seekers tend to have a misstep in the whole process?
Sure. Yeah. I would say sometimes in interviews, echoing some of what Jada was saying of answering questions, sometimes just answering the question directly, and taking our minds are racing. We can be a little bit nervous in an interview, and taking that step back to just pause briefly on a video call, or if it's just audio, to think about the question and then answer it. Because sometimes we get, it can be kind of jitters of if it's something you're unfamiliar with and you're trying to fill in the blanks, rather than, ask questions and have a dialogue with that. I think that can go a long way there. And then also just the usual preparation. I know some folks can be interviewing with more than one company. It's a competitive market out there. I highly suggest taking the materials for an interview, that your recruiter has sent to you, looking up the job description and the company again before you have your conversation, so that you don't mix up information between, one opportunity and another, so that you're, for your best interest of being prepared for that dialogue with a hiring manager or team.
Yes, I know there's one time I did that in an interview. I was interviewing with one company and I used the name of the company that I was interviewing next. So taking that time to prepare, not only prepare technically, but also getting in the mind space of which company are you talking to, which resume did you send them, what questions do you have, do you remember, the people's names that you've been talking to. So a lot of prep on there. So Michael, what thing have you seen people sort of not excel at?
Well, so what Jada and JoLana both said applies. I have a couple bullet points written down on some notes right here, and both of those were in there. Being direct, making sure you're prepared. But as the end of this question here, remembering that it's one big process and that you want to be. This is a little stereotypical, but if you've ever heard the term ABC, always be closing. You're interacting with a recruiter from start to finish, the hiring manager start to finish. This is the one part of a professional life where your personal life can blend in there, because negotiating an offer, changing jobs is a personal situation that affects your life. So remembering to be transparent throughout the whole process, making sure that you clearly communicate, this is what I'm targeting. Remember that the interview is a two-way interview, that you have goals in mind. Eventually you want to be at this level, or you want to be a manager, or you want to tackle new technologies. Make sure to voice what's important to you so that the company you're interviewing with can voice what's important to them, what they need out of this role. Everything through their goals, compensation, making sure that if you present all of your information up front, you're transparent about what you're looking for, why you're looking. It's going to make the entire process easier. You see recruiters and candidates all the time maybe not share enough information up front. Manager is interested, we get to offer, and then all of a sudden, something is not right. The puzzle pieces aren't fitting the way they should. So making sure that you're communicating in great detail. You cannot over communicate in the process. So make sure that you're talking and explaining where you're at. If you're interviewing elsewhere, that's fine. We just want to know about it. We want to make sure that we're being as decisive as we have to be. We're being as competitive as we need to be. And really, communication can help circumvent a lot of issues that happen at the end. Hey, you're looking for 200K. This role's only going to be 100K. Up and down, left and right, whatever it may be. You just want to make sure that you're really truly communicating your needs and that you've thought those through. You don't want to get to the end and say, oh, I didn't think I was going to get an offer. Now I don't know what I need. Or now I need way more than the recruiter actually said that we could do. So I personally try to be as transparent as possible. Hey, we're looking for this. This is what we're looking for, people manager, this and that. And sometimes people say, hey, that's not right for me. And we target other roles that we know we're going to be interested in. So just making sure that you're transparent and communicating as best as possible, and that you have your own situation really figured out so that when you go into a job search, you're prepared to make decisions, sooner rather than later, and you don't get caught off guard by certain situations that are going to pop up.
Wonderful. So we actually have a question from the audience. So I am going to paraphrase it because it won't be able to fit on the screen. But I'm going to paraphrase it and then have each one of you think about it, because we do tend to have a lot of people from the military who are in our audience because we are a veteran-owned firm. And, in the DoD security cleared space, we do have a lot of positions for people who are transitioning from the active service into the space. So one question that's always out there is, this person is going to be separating in July of 2022. Now, keeping in mind that we may have some kind of hybrid situation of in-person and virtual going on between now and then, when is it okay for them to start talking to recruiters? And I'm going to preface this by saying each one of you I know is going to have a different answer, because this is what I've experienced in 20 years of recruitment marketing in this space, is that each company is different as to when they're going to talk to a potential candidate. when is the position available? So I'm going to start with JoLana first, and then Jada, and then Michael. So JoLana, what would be your recommendation to our participant out there in the audience who's going to be separating in July 2022, but would like to know when they should start talking to recruiters and interviewing?
For myself personally, I support a lot of programs that are pursuing future opportunities at SAIC, and we post a lot of jobs that will say the timeline that we're anticipating award news on a job, and those are like a great opportunity to take a look at those. If we say, we're going to find out award news 6 months from now. So typically I would say that's usually when we start advertising some things that, and other companies I've worked at as well, like, there may be a 6-month leeway on some jobs. Some positions are going to be available right now. For anything I post, I try to let folks know if it's a future opportunity and that it's going to be further out there. And then that timeline can work out great for somebody that knows they're going to be going on terminal leave in a certain time frame or any of that. And I'd also recommend putting that on your resume so a recruiter can see the timeline that you're looking for up front, so they can see which type of role could be a better fit for you.
Jada, how about you? What are your recommendations for our audience participant?
Yeah, well, as far as connecting with the recruiter, with me, it's never too early as far as that's concerned. I think that developing that relationship, I feel like really kind of gone are the days if they're, where recruiters are, hiding behind, offices or main phone lines. I mean, we're out there to be connected with via LinkedIn and however people want to connect. And so, I do have people reach out that maybe are looking at 6 months to a year down the road. And so it's just opening up that dialogue, asking, have them check our career page, check for postings, make sure I know what their skills are. So if something pops up, I can share it with them as far as availability goes. And then really, we all love our military. And so being a resource for them as they are transitioning and hooking them up with transition organizations and really helping them with their resume or mock interviews or whatever it may be, so that they can be successful in that transition.
Awesome. And Michael?
So I love this question. So whoever asked it, thank you for asking it, because it shows and highlights how every company is a little bit different. There are some companies like Raytheon Intelligence and Space. The way we've been growing for so long is that pretty much every role we have is a need today. So if this person were to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'd have no problem having a conversation, giving job tips or job hunting tips, resume tips. But I would tell them, hey, let's stay in touch. Let's get you to review a lot of our job openings so we can kind of craft your hunt to this when we're a little bit more ready. Because most of our job needs are immediate. We have some that are contingent, but for the most part, if somebody said, hey, I'll be available next year at this time, we're not going to realistically go after them because we have needs immediately. But with that being said, we utilize the Skills Bridge program here. So if that person's open for a couple months of an internship, there's a lot of opportunity there, which is a great program. But as far as having the right mindset, I mean, going out there, talking to recruiters, learning how recruiters work from different aspects, job hunting isn't a full-time job until you're doing it. So it is a skill. And there are some people who ever find their own skills. So it's never too early to start talking to recruiters, reaching out to companies, learning about them and how to be a better applicant. So you can't really start that too soon. But some companies, if you apply and like JoLana said, if your resume says, hey, I'm not looking for something for a year, it might not be the right fit at that time. You just have to understand and communicate that.
That's a great suggestion. And, I'm going to put a little plug for our virtual job fair that is on Tuesday, because it is a great opportunity to start networking. I'm hearing all of you say, it's never too early to start networking with a recruiter, to start doing your research, finding out what kind of projects their recruiters are working on, establishing a relationship. So, a job fair is a great time to just have some questions. There are going to be some recruiters at a job fair. They're going to say, I can't talk to you right now because my needs are immediate. But most recruiters that I know in this space are going to take some time. They're going to look at your resume. They're going to give you a few tips, because we all want to have our transitioning veterans to be successful. So this also brings up sort of another question that I had, that, a lot of discussion is going on right now about remote work, or sort of, relocating to another place. So this was something that used to be a big no-no. This used to be something that we didn't really talk about, and all of a sudden with the pandemic, we're now talking about remote work. We're talking about moving work from one cleared community, maybe in the Washington, D.C. area, to the cleared community down in Texas. So let's sort of talk about, how do we prepare job seekers to have that conversation? How do they talk about remote work or relocation work? And how do they put that on their resume? So Jada, why don't we start with you?
Yes, definitely a hot topic these days. And I think everyone, companies are trying to figure out where they stand with remote work and what that's going to look like. Clearly, it's part of our landscape now. And I think, job seekers and companies alike really need to carefully or thoughtfully think about the idea of remote work and what that means. And, as a company, we do hire remote, but there are things to consider, I think, long-term, as far as the impact of that on team unity, on, the impact to your local economy, community, hiring someone that's, on the East Coast for a West Coast position. And then, as a job seeker, what that means for you working remotely, being isolated in that way long-term. While it sounds good now, is it something that you really, really want long-term? And then those conversations are absolutely happening on the front end. If you're open to remote, certainly put that on, to me, put that at the top of your resume, because that opens a lot of doors. And then, really having those conversations up front with companies, because if you're planning on living in another state, that, there are some, just for an example, some administrative things that go along with that for a company, just to make sure that, we're set up to, do payroll in that state. And so, if you're not telling us that until you start or closer to start, it could potentially, delay payroll, as an extreme example. So those are things you want to just be very open and transparent with up front, I think.
Michael, how about you?
Agreed. I mean, I always say the word transparent. It's like my favorite word. And you want to make sure that you're upfront about that. I know at RIS here, all of our jobs should list whether we have telecommuting or not, or temporary telecommuting. But there are a lot of things to think about. Remote work is nice. You roll out of bed in the morning, you get to work. But it also changes onboarding. It changes learning. There's a lot of aspects that, could present themselves as challenges. So talk about it up front if they're allowed to do it, if you're allowed to go into the office. As recruiters, we're pretty much social butterflies. So I miss handshakes and hugs with my team. But, at the end of the day, sometimes I'm just as productive, if not more productive, at home. So if you want to relocate, make sure that that's part of the package. If you have to relocate, like you want to go from DC to California or coast to coast or to Texas, and you need help with that, be upfront about that. And if it is a fully remote job that you're looking at, it's okay to ask questions about what's onboarding like. How would I get my computer? Would it be mailed out? Do I have to be on site? Things like that. So there's a lot of compliance things and administrative tasks that go into that. It's not just I wake up on Monday and I work at RIS and all of a sudden everything's peachy. And then with this community, with some of the security concerns we have, not all of our jobs are even allowed to be remote because of security concerns. So that's why it's a fair question to ask. Cybersecurity hits home for me. Some of the competition I face right now is that there are companies and job opportunities out there that, you know, you can work anywhere in the world, anywhere, and do this work, whereas some of our work, you know, has to be on site. So you do have to be on site for some of these roles due to security concerns, but we do say that up front. You know, if somebody wants to be in Idaho but work on this job, I do tell them this is an on-site role. But for other parts of our business, we've seen a lot of really strong productivity. Maybe it takes longer to get up to speed because you're learning in this type of situation as opposed to sitting next to a coworker, listening to them on the phone, things like that. So it's definitely unique. It's something that everyone's navigating new. So the more we talk about it, the more we're going to grow and really learn where that comfortable zone is, whether it's a hybrid, fully, non-fully. But just be transparent about if that's what you're looking for or if that's just what you're open to.
Wonderful. JoLana, anything to add?
Yeah, it sounds like similar to both Jada and Michael that we try to advertise the post that I have for saying, you know, if it can be worked remotely or not there, and same challenges for certain cleared work. You know, for us, that could be in San Antonio or, you know, in the DC area where you still have to go on site. I've seen a lot more. I've been learning more from job seekers of the best ways to kind of show that on your own resume. That's made it a bit more clear to me. I've seen some folks, they put that up at the top of their resume that they're looking to be 100% remote. And so I can see that, you know, which is helpful for the remote positions, or, you know, just knowing what your own preferences are. And also for if you're open to relocation or planning to relocate, that's also helpful to see too, just in that initial review of, you know, you're applying to a job in Austin and you live in another state, and saying, you know, that you're open to relocation. Seeing that in like my first impression kind of helps answer that initial question, or if you're open to relocating anywhere, is helpful to know with that too.
Wonderful. Well, you know, here we are. We've talked about a lot of really great stuff, and we're at the end of our half hour. Thank you so much, Michael, JoLana, and Jada, for joining us this afternoon to share your experience and, you know, tips for our job seekers. Please remember that all three companies are going to be part of our virtual job fair next Tuesday at August 3rd. And with that, I thank all of you for your time and your expertise and your great tips. Have a great day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.